Hello everyone, my name's Ruth from the University of Leeds. It says Edinburgh Council / something. I'm really a confusing person because I am working for the University of Edinburgh and seconded to the Scottish Government, but I'm actually presenting some work that I've done as part of my PhD here today, which was focusing on district heating specifically, or community heating it is sometimes called. Heat networks is another one that people use a lot in England and Wales, and I'm actually going to echo some of the things that Yelta was just talking about there, and many of the themes in district heating come up similarly with the community housing stuff, that some of the themes and barriers that come up for developing it. But I'm particularly looking at the role of local authorities, which is slightly different from maybe the community-led side of things that Yelta was talking about there. But maybe I think there's quite a lot of similar spirit to the way that local authorities are working on this. So, district heating in its idealistic way, and many of the things that we see in Denmark in some of their really good projects, and other countries like Sweden, Finland, some places in Germany, these are some of their potential benefits that make people really excited about district heating. So it can integrate lots of renewable sources that maybe wouldn't be able to be used otherwise. So solar thermal can be used on a large scale with storage to be able to get lots of heat through the winter and the long term. Use of waste heat from industry or from rivers, from the sea. So it can use things that would otherwise just have to be dissipated. And it offers opportunities for flexibility. So lots of technical things that people get interested in it about. But I'm definitely on the side of the institutional challenge of district heating. It's a local infrastructure technology, so it's got high upfront capital costs, and it's all about the way that it's set up for the benefits that it can achieve. So it's one of the really great examples, which is from Scotland again, that I use a lot, is at the Aberdeen Heat and Power Scheme. So it was an arm's length energy company set up by the local authority in Aberdeen with the objective of working for the people of Aberdeen to reduce fuel poverty. And they basically set up a district heating scheme owned by this arm's length company. First of all, connecting social housing and other council buildings to balance the heat load, so things like swimming pools, offices, these kind of things, publicly owned buildings. They've now connected over about 15 years, they've done several phases, connected 33 out of their 55 tower blocks, reduced the fuel costs for their residents by 50%, and they've got a really strong engagement there. And actually what they're doing now is extending their company to a commercial side that's starting to supply heat to the more commercial buildings in the city. So it's kind of grown from focus on social housing, fuel poverty reduction, into a longer term citywide system with lots of opportunities to interlink. I think two key things about district heating to get these kind of benefits that maybe it starts to offer is that it's really about scale, and a city or a town being able to coordinate its heat provision across a large scale to offer the flexibility, the benefits and spreading those costs across the city. And that requires quite a large amount of coordination. So local authorities are looked to lead this and to start to realise these benefits. So I kind of see the local authority in this context as being the kind of radical activist that's trying to bring energy back to the local level, and maybe take on some of the bigger energy companies in the way that they deliver energy. So that's the idealistic side. So what I wanted to present to you today is about the last part of my PhD, which is looking at how local actors have the agency to do this, because it's in the UK context, it's a new thing to do for local authorities to take on energy generation. So they don't have the experience and the skills in the same way. They don't have the ways and the mechanisms. The regulations don't support it necessarily. So how do they do that, and what's going on? So I'm presenting work from 29 semi-structured interviews, in-depth ones with quite a range of different actors. There's lots of people involved in these projects, lots of cooperation across. So local authorities, energy companies are interested and are dabbling, some more than others, and they tend to have people who are really focused on this. And the scale is important as well. So it's a local, by its nature, it's a local technology, but there's space in the regional level for sharing, capacity building and ideas and experiences. And the gas distribution companies are quite interesting in that space as well. They link in and they're not necessarily always fighting it. Sometimes they are. And then, the national level as well. So there's lots of stuff going on across the scales. Echoing what Yelta said, I'm thinking about the institutional challenges, and so I used a bit of literature on socio-technical transitions. It's a bit impenetrable in its language, so I'm sorry, but I'm trying to be practical in this presentation, but there's two things that I just can't quite get rid of yet. I only handed my PhD in a few weeks ago, so please forgive me. So one is the idea of a socio-technical regime. So you have a set of technologies like the gas network, the way that our electricity is generated, the institutions, the people around it set up to support that and function around that. And what that can create is this kind of regime that's actually hard for other ways of doing things, and they resist it. It resists change to those things. And then the idea in this literature is a niche, so you have a space where innovation can take place and it's protected maybe by government policies or by a special set of circumstances like an off-gas community. The island of Gia is quite a special case, for example, but they act as a beacon that everyone can copy and learn from. So what I was looking at was how do these transitions take place? Do when people are trying to put district heating in, do they try and fit into the existing energy system and how it all works with the financing and stuff, or do they, so that's a kind of fit and conform transition, or do they try and stretch and transform the system around them to get to a new place where district heating could be locally owned, locally coordinated for maybe different purposes than it is today? So talking to the local stakeholders, there were a range of different views and kind of political narratives that people used to try and justify their approach to district heating development. So these are the stretch and transform ones. So on the local public side, local authorities, they're saying we've sold the concept of district heating not just as an environmental thing, a fuel poverty thing, or a cost-saving thing. It's a total concept in terms of local generation, bringing things down to the local level. And actually, the private sector working on district heating, so the kind of specialists in the energy companies who are selling it, they are saying they've got a lot of skills and kind of capacities in this area, but they're saying they need the landscape to change, but if it did, they would respond to it, obviously. And but also they're calling for local authority leadership. It's too risky for them without that local authority leadership. So there's some kind of cooperation space there, or something for the way the capacities are spread out across the actors. And then in the kind of fit and conform narratives that people were using, it was about risk. It's always about risk with infrastructure investments. So one was saying at the moment our finance colleagues would not be interested in borrowing through the Public Work Loans Board. We prefer to do it through grants. Or attracting private investment, so kind of not willing to stick their noses out and do it yet for various reasons. And similarly, the energy companies, they only do it where it's really commercially viable. They're not going to push out for long-term investment stuff. And what I am basically did in this work was kind of take a step back and look at the regime around district heating and work out where are some of the resistances that are coming. So we tend to focus quite a lot on how can we improve the capacities of local authorities to deliver district heating, how can we make it possible for them to do this and fight the system. But there's a kind of another argument in this literature saying actually alongside that you need to destabilise the bigger regime in certain ways so that unsustainable parts don't stay around. So there's basically, I'm going to just go like that so you can see them all. So these are the kind of things that were resisting for district heating. So housing developers are kind of called upon to start installing district heating right from the start. They just say no, can't be bothered. It's not. At the moment, many of them anyway are not looking seriously into it, and they've got the power to do that because everyone needs houses. Then there's like more the kind of active actors who are saying we don't think it's good, it's not practical, customers won't want it, they won't buy the houses. The gas net, it'll undermine the gas network and we need that, it's too risky. Material strategies, so Ofgem actually fund the gas networks to innovate, and they're doing projects that look at low carbon options with the gas network. So there's a kind of competition between infrastructures going on there around potentially for hydrogen use in the existing gas network. And then institutional stuff, so the austerity agenda, undermining the capacities of local authorities. So the resources are low to really build up their skills here and kind of take a bit more of an initiative. Uncertain energy policy, public procurement rules are getting in the way, and also the kind of the business models of companies are also set up in a way that doesn't really support. I mean, Yelta was just talking about this. The kind of if you've got a project that's viable with 6% return, that's not attractive to maybe the classical business finance models, but it as a community that is quite an attractive thing. So, implications and thoughts. Do local authorities have the agency to shape and drive the transition to district heating in that context? I feel like I've been very negative. I'm not normally. 75% of my thesis is quite positive, but I think it's about seeing that other side alongside all of the initiatives to build capacity. There is a need to think about how to destabilise unsustainable parts of the wider system. So things like just talking about the future of the gas network could be quite a step forward. We don't talk about that at all. So when will gas not be something we can use to heat our homes in the future? Because probably, some models will suggest 2030, that kind of time frame, and that's really soon. And there's a role for regulations, and I think Scottish Government, again, are really interesting in this area. I've got some stuff, but basically looking at the role of local authorities and their powers to think about strategic planning for energy, and actually having some teeth behind that, so kind of enabling regulations as well as customer protection. There's absolutely no customer protection for heat at the moment in this for district heating style stuff. So I hope that's kind of stimulated some thoughts for community energy.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.